On this LG C1 we have 4 options for Motion Pro. The CX also has the same options, but I don't have the CX, so I'm just gonna talk about what I see on this LG C1, what is going on. And I want to do a 2-part video. I'm gonna show you the screen closely on part 2. So on this one, I'm gonna share with you what I think is going on, and hopefully you can see it better when I show you the screen on part 2. So that auto setting is very interesting because based on my research and what I've seen, and there's not a lot about this, there's almost nothing on the internet. By the way, on the recording the sky looks blue. I have no idea why. That's not what I see in front of me. But I have Death Stranding here running at 120 Hz, and I've been testing it on Spider-Man, on this game, on Code Vein, so games that I can get 120 Hz, so I can compare all the 4 options. So what that auto setting is doing is not inserting a black frame. It is inserting a dim frame. So it should be called a dim frame insertion. So basically what that technique, Motion Pro, what that technique does is it tries to clean the persistent blur. It tries to clean the retina, so you get a better motion resolution. So when you move the camera, the resolution you can see, so it's not blurry. So that's awesome. So what that auto setting is doing, and just to show you what I'm talking about, just go to settings on Game Optimizer, and you go here to Motion Pro, and you change this to auto. And I'm gonna show you my settings, so you see, what are the best settings, and I'm going to do that comparison in part 2, and I'm gonna show you all the settings. I'm going to compare HLG, the HLG trick with tone mapping on, in terms of brightness, in comparison with this Motion Pro on auto, because auto is brighter than on. So what's the difference? Why is this auto such a great setting, in my opinion? So what it's doing, it is changing the brightness of the screen a little bit. It's imperceptible to the human eye, and I was measuring it with my cell phone app. I have a cell phone app that uses the light sensor of the cell phone to measure peak brightness. That's not accurate, but it allows me to see some changes that sometimes my eye cannot see in terms of if it's going up or down. So what this auto setting is doing, instead of inserting a black frame, it is inserting the PWM. It is doing a dimmer frame. So it's a dim frame insertion. And when you have a static image, it is doing it less. So when you move the camera, that dim frame insertion becomes stronger. So you get a better motion resolution, because when you have a static image, you don't need motion resolution because nothing is moving on the screen. So as soon as the screen detects that there are objects moving, it's going to increase that effect. That dim frame insertion is going to be wider, so it's going to give you a better motion clarity in movement. It's going to look a little bit dimmer, but you cannot see it. You cannot detect that it's becoming dimmer on the screen. You cannot see it. So what I was testing with my cell phone on the hand, I was basically measuring the sky, because we have a very large portion of the sky here that is bright, and of course it's slightly different. And what I was doing is moving the camera and seeing, for example, I'm getting like 300 nits here. So I move the camera like this, and when it's moving, I see like 230, and then it goes up again to 300. So it's like 300, move the camera, 230, and I see it goes up 300. So it is affecting the brightness, but just a little bit, to give you better motion resolution and not having to sacrifice that much motion clarity. So the comparison between that Motion Pro on auto and high, high is better, but at 120 frames we are getting already a better motion clarity just by having more frames, and the difference is not gonna be big enough in most cases for most people for it to be better. So this auto setting at high frame rates, at 100 and 120 hertz, it works very well, and it's going to allow you to play the game on SDR and get better colors. And you can even try BT1886, so you can get a better color saturation, because the SDR standard is BT1886 or gamma 2.4. BT1886 because it's trying to simulate the CRT, so that's basically the SDR standard. So by having a lower gamma, you get a better color saturation. It does look better. And on a dark room, this is actually going to look more contrasty. It's going to look a little bit more saturated. It's going to look better. And for a light room, you can use 2.2. And the settings I have here on SDR with this Motion Pro on auto is basically maxing out the OLED pixel brightness, contrast on 85, your gamma 2.2 for a bright room, or 1886, BT1886 for a dark room. And I also have the peak brightness on high using that color control app. I can post a link in the description to show you how to do that if you don't know, on PC mode, game optimizer mode. And the colors, just auto detect, color depth 55, warm 50. So on part 2, what I'm gonna do is I am going to compare this auto setting with these settings that I show you here. I'm going to compare that with the HLG trick and dynamic tone mapping on with that Motion Pro on high, okay? So basically, just to give you a heads up, with the HLG trick, dynamic tone mapping on and Motion Pro on high, you get a slightly better motion resolution and it looks brighter, a little bit brighter. The shadow detail is a little bit more, but not by a lot, not by a lot. And actually, there are some cases where this option has a higher luminance, okay? There are some options, some places. So I'm gonna show you that on part 2, but you do get more HDR effect with the HLG trick. So if you have something like a thunderstorm or electricity popping on the screen, I'm gonna show you that on Spider-Man 2, on Spider-Man. It looks fantastic. So with that HLG trick, you do get a better HDR effect. You get better shadow detail, a little bit more overall brightness. It's very close, but the colors are less accurate than this on SDR. So at higher frame rate, this might be a better recommendation, okay? This might look better for most people, and it's gonna make a lot of sense. Also, you can just use the HLG trick with HGIG and this auto, and it's gonna be more colorful, it's gonna be more contrasty, it's gonna be more HDR-like. So I'm gonna show that on part 2. So just to summarize, the discovery, after exploring more this Motion Pro on auto, because I've never tried it before. Why? Because, high is the best. That's what I'm gonna use. But looking at it closely, this auto setting makes a lot of sense at 100 and 120, not at 60. At 60 is worse than low. But at 100 and 120, it's actually better than low. Okay, so low is brighter, but it's not better. So it doesn't retain the motion resolution better. So it is better than medium because it's brighter. So medium retains the motion resolution a little bit better, but it's dimmer. High is the best, but it's even dimmer. So on SDR, this is basically the only option you have for Motion Pro. The only option. The only way to use Motion Pro on high, as far as I know, is with the HLG trick and dynamic tone mapping on, or by going on the service menu and changing that module HDR, which I don't recommend because it's just going beyond the established limits of this panel. So I would not do that to use Motion Pro on high on SDR. That gives you like 400 nits full screen, and that is a little bit too much for what LG is comfortable with allowing you to do, especially when I am turning off TPC and GSR on the service menu. So yeah, I think this exploration is very important because there's no videos on YouTube talking about that. I couldn't find almost nothing, almost no information about it. What is that auto setting doing? What it's doing, again, is instead of inserting a black frame, it's inserting a dimmer frame. And it is changing dynamically. It is increasing that PWM. It is actually it's decreasing it. So when you move the camera. So it's basically giving you a better motion resolution when you move the camera and a better brightness for a static image. So that cloud is going to look brighter if you are static, and if you move the camera it's going to be dimmer, but you're not going to be able to tell the difference because a 60 nits difference in movement, you cannot see that unless we are static and you change 50 more, 50 less, 50 more, 50 less. Unless you do that, there's no way you can notice that. So actually that auto setting, it is a very, very, very good idea, and I wish I explored that earlier. I'm still gonna use HLG tone mapping on and high because it is better, but this makes a lot of sense, especially if you care about color accuracy, okay? Because SDR with BT1886 is the standard, and auto detect color saturation 55 150 is what is supposed to give you the most accurate picture on SDR, and your contrast on 85. We have to max out the OLED pixel brightness. I know for sure that professional calibrators are gonna tell you if you care about colors, you cannot max out that OLED pixel brightness, but you have no option. To use black from insertion, you need to get as much brightness as you can, and also you have to use this peak brightness on high, which again, these professional calibrators are gonna tell you that that is going to dilute the colors, but again, we have no option. So that's it. I'm gonna post the settings on the description of the video, and I'm going to do part 2 showing Spider-Man with a very good example that I found. It's a one mission that has shadow details, it has highlight details, and it is perfect. It also has skin tones that I can use to compare the colors between this option and the HLG option. So we're going to compare everything on part 2. We're going to compare the colors, we're going to compare the motion resolution, the brightness that you get, and yeah, which one is the best. I mean, they are both great. If you can get 100 frames on a game or 120, yeah, even sample and hold, it doesn't look that bad. But this auto setting is a lot better than the baseline sample and hold. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I'm gonna do part 2 with a screen to show you better. Okay?